On today's episode of Two Broads Talking Politics, we speak with Dr. Cindy Banyai, who is running for Congress in the Florida 19th District. You may notice a slight uptick in the number of episodes lately, and that will continue right up through November 3rd. So stay tuned and be sure to do everything you can to get Democrats elected up and down the ballot everywhere in the country. Thanks, everyone. I am on today with Cindy Banyai, who is running in the Florida 19th District for Congress this year. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Kelly. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So I think we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but why don't you start by giving us just a little bit of background about who you are and why you're running for Congress?
Yeah, thanks so much. So my name is Dr. Cindy Banyai, and I am running for Florida Congressional District 19. I'm the Democratic nominee, actually, and Florida 19 is coastal Southwest Florida, going all the way Boca Grande to Marco Island. And I'm a mom and small business owner, and I'm fighting for our water, our health, and our community. And I was compelled to run because I was working with nonprofits for the past 10 years, and I saw a lot of stuff I didn't like. I saw people in our community being ignored. I saw research and data just being put on a shelf, and I saw a lot of corruption. People just glad-handing one another, telling everybody it's okay while themselves and their friends are getting rich. And I was compelled to action because I think that we need to root out corruption everywhere it is. I happen to be an expert in this area of good governance. I have a PhD and I'm part-time faculty at Florida Gulf Coast University in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. And my research background is good governance and community. And I just saw everything that I had learned being just thrown out the window. And so I decided to run to be the servant leader that the people of Southwest Florida deserve.
You mentioned this is coastal. This is a very coastal district. Like the whole thing is just on the coast. So obviously this has been a terrible hurricane season already, and it's not over, and it's been pretty brutal to the Gulf area. What does that look like on the ground where you are, not just the hurricanes, but climate change in general, and what are the sorts of things you'd like to see Congress really doing to tackle that?
Yeah, we are the number one state in the union that is expected to bear the brunt of climate change. Hurricanes are massively devastating for us. My house was hit for Irma a couple years ago. I'm looking out my window right now. I see damage that's still there just because we never got around to fixing it. Even a hurricane that was a level 3, category 3 that hit our house, it rips up all the trees. You're without power for a couple weeks. At least we didn't have as many people die as bigger hurricanes like we saw in Puerto Rico and, Dorian in the Bahamas, but they're still really massively disruptive. It disrupts your economy and everything like that. So it's a scary thing to look at and to worry about your home, your business, your community day in and day out. I think that we have 5 tropical storms spinning right now. It's the most named storms that have ever been going on at the same time, I believe. And it's scary because you never necessarily know where they're going to end up. And you're on edge and you have to figure out what you're going to do. We've been preparing for hurricanes. Hurricane season starts in June. So I have a pallet of water in my home ready to go in case we run out of water. And, we're used to hurricanes, but it's the fact that there are so many. We're going to run out of letters here actually very shortly. It's true. They don't even know what to do. Well, what do? We just start with next year's list. Noah's trying to figure it out. And then, what happens to your home? I feel really bad for our friends over on the northern part of the Gulf Coast in Louisiana, Alabama. I mean, they're getting Sally right after they got Laura. And that's massively disruptive for people and washing away houses and businesses. And it's all because the Gulf waters are supercharged, heated from global warming. And it spins up these hurricanes to be monsters. And the people pay the price.
Yeah, and so what are some of the kinds of legislation you'd like to see? I mean, obviously there's all sorts of things we should be doing, but that could help reverse somewhat. You know, we're in this for a while now with climate change, but could start to reverse some of the effects.
Well, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we just, need to recognize that it's a thing. My opponent doesn't even think climate change is a thing. He was, just postulating the other day, oh, it's so confusing. It's climate change. It's global warming. I'm not sure. And it's like, listen, this is part of the same thing. Just because scientists keep trying to clarify for people to make it, easier to grasp doesn't mean that it's like we've been vacillating on what it is. No, the science has been very clear for 30 years around what's going on here. And so we need leaders that are committed to the science, that are committed to understanding that humans play a role, because that's another thing my opponent disavows, and understanding that we can make a change. And so what I would like to see and what I'm proposing, first and foremost, I have linked my entire policy platform to the Sustainable Development Goals, which are the 17 global goals that are part of this systemic response to both sustainable development and climate change, and try to, all the things that we need to make our world a better place, more stable and things like that. Also, I have signed on to the Florida Green New Deal, and that is a state level initiative around transforming our economy to be more green technology focused and working on climate mitigation strategies. And in the U.S. House of Representatives, I will support a new iteration of the Green New Deal. And that would include, again, that transition towards green technologies, as well as, investing in things like public transportation and, livable, walkable cities. We really need to think about this. And the evidence is out there, the science is out there, and we really just need politicians to get on board.
Yeah, so you mentioned you're a mom, you've got 3 kids. You understand, like I do right now, what it's like to be trying to do stuff from home while your kids are in classes at home. We don't have that many moms of young kids in Congress. Mm-hmm. What sort of difference would that make? What are the kinds of perspectives that moms or parents of young kids can bring to legislation, to understanding how to serve the people?
Well, yeah, you're right. I think that there are 2. I think Tammy Duckworth had a baby, and then we got Katie Porter, who's got her kids. My kids are age 3, 7, and 10, so preschool and elementary school age. And the funny thing about it is that I was kind of poo-pooed in the beginning of my run about that. Why are you doing it? And just wait till your kids are older. and a big compelling factor was, just like you said, that there isn't a lot of representation in any of our leadership of young moms. We are left out of the equation a lot. And it's because we're busy. I mean, frankly, a lot of times. So I understand.
What are you talking about? I'm not busy.
Right. We're busy. And, but it's, we see things that happen. We understand what's going on in the schools because we're likely the default parent who has to take care of the kids in the schools, and the teachers are calling us, so we see the classrooms that are falling apart and the teachers at the end of their wits. God bless them, doing their best right now. My son his teacher is got a classroom, full of kids and online at the same time. It's amazing watching them do this. But, so I can say, hey, look, we need to invest in these teachers. We need to invest in the technologies. And we need to make sure that our schools are safe for kids. Not safe looking like a prison, because that's what ends up happening when you get people who don't care about kids doing these things. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of schools in these areas that are barbed wire and guards at the front, and it's like frightening, right? So I think that having that perspective of not only just being a mom, but seeing the things and the consequences of policies that are made is really, really valuable. Also, we care. We just care about other people. That's what happens when you're a mom. Your heart extends out of your body into your kids and all the people that your kids interact with. And it's a very different thing than when you're a hardened politician who just cares about who's putting dollars in your bank account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier your opponent who doesn't believe in climate change. This is an interesting race because it's an open seat. The Republican incumbent has retired, and he was maybe a little bit more moderate on things like climate change. What does this race look like for you? I mean, this on paper looks like a fairly lopsided Republican district, but what is happening on the ground? What do you see as your path to victory?
Yeah, you're right. It does on paper look 100% red, right? But it's really not. So that Republican primary that my opponent Byron Donalds came out of was a 9-way primary. They destroyed each other. Okay. I mean, like, every person in our district that's a voter got a postcard with a mock-up of a mugshot of my opponent on it, because he does in fact have a criminal past, but that was part of the primaries mudslinging. I actually ended up getting more votes in the primary than my opponent because they just split so heavily on the Republican side. So, I mean, long story short, even though there are a significantly larger amount of Republicans registered in this district, a good 6-7% of them are actually Democrats registered as Republicans, because this area is seen as Republican so much that the Democrats register so they can vote in the primary. Because we have this weird thing in Florida where if you get 51% of the vote in the primary and there's no other party opponent, you win outright, which happens all the time in the local elections. So there's that nuance. We have 140,000 non-party affiliated folks. So that's pushing on a third of the whole electorate. So they're a huge component, and they are not all Republicans. In fact, we estimate 56% of them are solid Democrats, as a matter of fact, and then the rest being moderates of some other kind. And the other thing, so that's just on paper how this is very different than the way it looks in the past. But the other thing is about the quality of the candidates. I am somebody who has worked in this community for 10 years. I've built my business here. I've worked with hundreds of organizations and convened thousands of people. In fact, it's very common for me to walk into a meeting with people who now know me as Cindy Banyai, U.S. House of Representatives candidate, and had actually forgotten that I was the researcher who led them through a piece of research, 5 years ago. Because I was so in the background and just the little nerdy researcher presenting the data to the people and, just encouraging everybody to get involved kind of thing. And then the light bulbs start going off. They're like, oh my gosh, she's really been doing the things that we're talking about that we want to have seen and done in our community. And then everybody's just on fire about me. I will 100% say that my opponent does not have that. He lives out of the district. Actually, he doesn't even live in the district, and does not have the level of community engagement, does not have the level of expertise in governance, does not have the ability to do anything for the community, and has not. In fact, his entire platform is about Trump. And even among the Republican electorate, Trump is not the most popular person because of the failed coronavirus response. So we have a shot. We have an absolute shot. We've calculated the numbers. We have teams of people that are doing targeted marketing to let people know, because our polling shows that once people find out about me, and once they find out about some of the misdeeds in the past of my opponent in particular, and the fact that he has no platform, it's a 10-point swing in my direction. So we can do this.
Yeah, that's excellent. I want to ask about your boxing background.
Yes, I love talking about my boxing background.
So you were a professional boxer for a while? Tell me about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always thought I was, tough. And in college, when I was at Michigan State, I actually entered an amateur boxing competition called the Tough Man Competition, and I won. And I then got into the pro circuit from there. So I had a series of fights in Michigan and learned a lot, trained really hard, learned about how dirty the sport is, unfortunately for us. But from there, I moved abroad. I lived in Taiwan as an English teacher, and then I moved to Japan to do my master's work. And then when I got into Japan, I decided to revitalize my career. So I had my pro card in Japan. I lived in my boxing gym in Japan, actually, because it was 2 hours away from my school. Lived in the closet of my boxing gym, actually. So that's how dedicated I was. And so I never had a fight in Japan because I am a huge woman. And there were the biggest Japanese female fighter was a lightweight, and I just never got there. But, I trained the whole time and was just, kind of a fixture in the gym and in the community around my boxing. So, and then when I moved back here to Florida, I started working out at a gym here, but then kind of transitioned to helping that gym in our community and spin up some programs for young people.
That's amazing. So what are the connections? I mean, there must be some sort of lessons learned from boxing that translate, hopefully not in a, completely direct way to running for office, but I'm not going to complain if you go punch out your opponent, but hopefully that's not the lesson learned. But how does that help prepare you for something like this?
Well, yeah, it really does. So there's really two things. So one, of course, is that boxing gyms they are just incredible hubs of a community. They are the take all kinds of places. And you just learn how to be accepting of other people, how to work hard together, and how to come together with people in tough times. So that's something that I've seen in every single boxing gym I've been a part of. Personally, though, what it comes down to for me is that I know how to take a punch. And that is both, the physical and the metaphorical punch. You learn in the gym and in the ring that when somebody hits you in the face, that stings. Not just hurts, but stings your emotions. Your face is you, right? It feels like a personal affront. And one of the differentiating factors between successful and unsuccessful boxers is how well you deal with that moment. So if you can take that punch and breathe it in and keep going and stay focused on your fight and what you need to do, then you're going to persevere. But if you take that punch and you get angry, you get puffed up, you're going to lose. You fall apart. And I never fall apart. So I can take that and still stay on the path. And that's a hugely important thing in politics. And if anybody's looked at my social media, you will see this in real time. I have had everything from being called fat to being called a terrible mother, from being called a communist and socialist. I even had one of the Republicans in my race start a petition to get me fired with a picture of Mao saying that I was communist, indoctrinating students at the university. And if I took every one of those things personally and let it derail me, I wouldn't be here today. And I wouldn't have done most of the things in my life, frankly. It's just that one thing. If you can take that and just let it wash over you and continue forward, you're going to be successful in just about anything in life. And it's helpful in politics.
Yeah, definitely. Not just running for office, but if you are in Congress, that seems like an especially valuable skill.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to sort of wrap up by asking how people can help your campaign. So this is such a weird campaign season. It's such a weird year. Everything's weird. But, what can our listeners do to help make sure, you mentioned that if people hear your story and hear your opponent's story, that they're going to vote for you. What can we do to make sure that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you follow on social media. You can find me Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at SWFLMom2020 because I put mom on Front Street because it's important. I'm really trying to get that voice out there. That's where you'll see me getting in there, talking with people about issues, but you'll also see about my platform and things like that. Of course, my website is a good resource as well, cindybanyai.com. That's CINDYBANYAI.com. And through my website, you can volunteer for us. We have virtual volunteers, so anybody around the country can sign up to help us with social media or even to do phone banking on our behalf, because we're really going to need to get out the vote here in Florida, not just for me, but also for Joe Biden, to make sure that we are able to flip this state blue top to bottom. We need those type of virtual volunteers. And of course, grassroots candidates, cold, hard cash. Cash helps. I don't have corporate backers. I don't have big secret super PACs, doing crazy stuff to malign my opponent. It's really just me and a ragtag group of former students and moms who are just really pushing for change. So every dollar counts for a candidate like me. You can check me out on ActBlue or get to those links through my social media or my website as well. But that will help us get on the air, because right now, our strategy-wise, that's what we're looking at. We need the television ads. And I am actually going to put on real shoes and shoot a commercial on Monday so that we can get on the air.
Yeah. And you have a podcast too.
I do have a podcast. That's right. It's called Dr. Cindy Speaks. And it is, you can find it on my website, Podbean, or Apple Podcasts. And that is, it really started initially as me talking into the void at the beginning of the pandemic. And then it really transformed into me having really fantastic conversations with other candidates around the state of Florida, as well as some really fascinating people doing good work in spaces, economy, foreign policy, and there'll be absolutely more of that. So love to have you check out my podcast at Dr. Cindy Speaks as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for listeners, Cindy is also one of the candidates from No Dem Left Behind, and we'll feature some of the other candidates coming up here in the next few weeks. But could you give us the sort of quick overview of what No Dem Left Behind is?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a proud member of No Dem Left Behind, one of the inaugural group of us, again, candidates who are Democrats running in deep red seats just like mine. And we banded together to coordinate and support one another and fundraise and get our message out so that, we are not just left to the void, because that's what happens a lot of times, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. If you're a Democrat running in a deep red district, everybody's like, great job. Sorry, we can't help you. But No Dem Left Behind fundamentally is opposed to that philosophy. And so we've really been working to get the message out that we don't want any red seat to go uncontested just because it's too hard for a Democrat to run. And it's been great. There are fantastic candidates that are in the coalition, and the leadership of the coalition has just been so great with connecting and getting us out there with celebrities have come, and supported us, and Mark Hamill and Rosie O'Donnell, just to name a few. And it's just been an amazing experience, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. And we would love to have you follow them at nodemleftbehind.com.org. No Dem Left Behind. You go ahead and check it out, and you'll get right there.
.com, yeah.
.com, thank you. And follow them on social media as well. And donate to all of us. So that's what's fantastic about that. You can find No Dem Left Behind on ActBlue, and then that gets dispersed between our entire coalition. So that really makes a difference to us as well. And it's, we're really changing the game, and I'm proud to be part of it.
I love that. So, Cindy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. This was a really fun conversation. And, of course, we at Two Broads Talking Politics are all about getting more moms in Congress. So I wish you a lot of luck, and I hope our listeners will check you out and support your campaign.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much, Kelly. This was a blast.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.